Being a security guard is no easy job, especially if you have to work the night shift. From encountering actual Grim Reapers to unnerving close calls with mysterious figures. These are some of the scariest security bodycam moments ever recorded.
Pull over.
A security guard was finishing his check of the upper floor at an office building in Charleston, South Carolina, when something inside one of the rooms clearly terrified him. He burst through the door running at full speed and made it halfway down the hallway before his legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor. Then the CCTV caught something that made everyone who watched the footage stunned. His body started sliding backward, as if some invisible force grabbed his legs. He was pulled across the floor and back through that same door. After this encounter, he resigned from his job and was convinced that he had encountered a ghost. Tree Witch. A security guard was wrapping up his late rounds at a warehouse in Georgetown, Penang, Malaysia, when he noticed a faint blue glow coming from the large tree beyond the boundary wall. He raised his camera, and what he saw made him step back. Perched upright in the branches was a figure, pale-skinned, with long dark hair hanging loose around its face, glowing faintly with that cold blue light like it was radiating from inside. It was standing upright and staring directly at him. In Malaysian folklore, that is exactly how a kuntilanak is described, but how a Malaysian spirit ended up in Georgetown is still a mystery. Mysterious abduction. A police officer was driving past an abandoned building on the outskirts of Beckley, West Virginia, when he noticed a movement through one of the dark windows. He pulled over and went inside to check. The building had been empty for years. He swept his flashlight through the few rooms, peeling walls, broken furniture, and silence. Then he heard a child crying somewhere inside. He called out, asking whoever was there to show himself, but nothing answered. He kept moving. Then a bang came from behind him. He spun around and saw a dark figure in white with long hair covering its face standing beside the wall. Then something even more mysterious happened. A growling sound echoed through the room, and his camera fell on the ground and was found in the same spot, but he went missing that night.
Get on the ground! Right now!
Poltergeist activity. One Saturday night, a security guard came home after a long shift in Rockford, Illinois, and the moment he switched on the lights, something felt off. The dining chair scraped slowly across the floor on its own. The chandelier above began swaying side to side, like something invisible was making its presence known. Terrified, he backed into his room, locked the door, and sat on his bed until morning, thinking it might be a specter who could come again to haunt him. Possessed woman. On May 11, 2023, a family in Zalpi, Poland, called 911 after hearing terrifying screams from a nearby house. Police searched the home and found a woman named Kamika hiding in the attic. Her face was unnaturally pale, her hair was messy, and she was growling like an animal, as if she was no longer in control of herself. The officers tried speaking to her calmly, but she only became more aggressive, throwing objects and refusing to respond normally. Later, a paramedic checked her for mental illness but found no clear explanation. Realizing the situation seemed beyond medicine or logic, they stepped back, and a priest was later called to perform an exorcism. Haunted school. A security guard was locking up the rooms after closing time at a school in Decatur, Georgia, when he reached one of the classrooms and stopped in his tracks. Sitting in the far corner, hunched over one of the back benches, was a figure with a pale white face and hollow dark eyes. As the figure fixed his gaze on him, the guard ran to get the others. By the time they came back, the room was empty. Nobody had been registered inside that building after 3 in the afternoon. The guards believed it was a phantom waiting for the teacher for his lesson. Haunted hotel. A security guard named John was making his usual late-night rounds on the second floor of a hotel in Flagstaff, Arizona, when something stopped him cold. The CCTV captured a blurry figure walking out of the room. And even more mysteriously, the carpet in one of the hallways had been ripped back from the floor, as something had dragged it. John kept walking slowly, calling out into the empty corridor, but nothing answered. He moved to the next hallway, but found nothing. Nobody else was checked in on that floor that night, and he was sure that this was done by a ghost, as this hotel had a haunted history. Ghostly drag. A security guard was walking the lobby of an office building in Salem, Massachusetts, when a dark, smoky figure appeared in his path. He dropped to the ground in terror. Then something pulled him, his legs lifted into the air, and his body slid across the floor as if an invisible force had grabbed hold of him. The figure dissolved just as suddenly as it came, and the guard scrambled to his feet and ran. When staff reviewed the footage the next morning, they recognized it as the soul of a colleague who passed away in the office after being terminated. Coastal ghost? 2 Navy guards were patrolling the waterfront at Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia one night when their superior, watching the live feed from inside, radioed in and asked who the small figure standing beside them was. The guards looked at each other and turned around. There was a dark shape nearby, small like a child, close enough to touch, standing motionless. The flashlight beam was passing through the figure as if it were made of smoke. They swept the area but found no one. This coast had been haunted by a reputation for years, and sailors working on the guards kept reporting strange beings appearing there, so they were sure that it might be one of them. Little ghosts. A few days ago in Nayarit, Mexico, 2 police officers were patrolling at 3 a.m. when they filmed something scary at an elementary school. The video shows 2 small figures standing behind the school's gate, staring at the officer. Before the cops could get out and see them clearly, the figures screamed, ran into the schoolyard, and disappeared into the dark. The officers searched everywhere but found no one. The school was supposed to be empty at that hour of the night. After the video went viral, people said they must have seen ghosts. Aisle Phantom. A security guard at a convenience store in Memphis, Tennessee, was reviewing the previous night's footage when something on the screen made him watch it twice. A tall, transparent figure stepped off the escalator and walked a few paces into the store before fading completely into the air. The store was closed, and no one was supposed to appear in the store at that hour of the night. He showed the footage to the owner. The guard before him had quit without giving a reason. After watching this footage, he finally understood why. Spooky figure. On the 15th of August, 2015, a strange moment was captured by the bodycam of a security guard on his night shift at a shopping mall in Puerto Montt, Chile. It was 3 in the morning, and the lights were off when, suddenly, the escalator started running on its own. Then he spotted a figure in white, with long black hair standing motionless. The guard was terrified because his fellow guards had warned him about a witch sighting, but he had ignored them until now. After witnessing this, he became convinced that the mall was haunted. Cemetery spirit. 2 years ago, a video shared on Instagram stopped a lot of people mid-scroll. A security guard was on his day shift at St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans, Louisiana, walking the grounds between the graves when his bodycam picked up a dark figure standing near a tree. He walked toward it slowly, expecting to find someone trespassing, but by the time he reached the spot, the figure was gone, as if it had stepped into the tree itself. The viewers online suggested that it might be a spirit, as cemeteries are said to be haunted. Strange forest figure. A patrolling guard was driving past the Ouachita National Forest in Arkansas late one night when a wailing sound from somewhere deep in the trees made him pull over. He grabbed his camera and went in on foot. A few minutes into the dark, his bodycam caught it. A tall figure standing between the trees, motionless, its body like bundled sticks, dark-faced with pointy ears, just standing there watching. The footage cuts out there. His camera was found at that exact spot the next morning. The guard has not been seen since, and authorities are still looking.
Yeah, listen, there it is again.
Terrified gatekeeper. A security guard was doing his night shift at a school gate in Savannah, Georgia, when he encountered something that ended his career. He was sitting on a chair near the entrance when a tall figure in white with pale face and dark eyes appeared beyond the iron gates, and a dark figure began slithering toward him. Then, from behind it, a second figure drifted forward. When the guard spotted this figure behind the metal bars, he dropped everything and ran straight to his home. He never returned to that job, convinced that it was a witch. Invisible guest. A security guard was making his usual rounds at a restaurant in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when his supervisor spotted something strange on the CCTV monitor. The guard had stopped near one of the tables and was clearly talking to someone, nodding, pointing directions, leaning slightly forward. His supervisor radioed him and asked who he was speaking with. The guard replied calmly that a short girl had lost her way. His supervisor told him the camera showed nobody there. The guard froze, looked around, and bolted from the area. Later, they suggested that it might be the soul of a young woman who had passed away in the building 2 weeks ago. Tree marks. A ranger patrolling the Lakeshore Trail at Boundary Waters in Minnesota noticed gouges on several pine trunks and stopped to investigate. That's when his bodycam picked up the creature across the lake, standing fully upright against a tree, tearing at the bark with both hands.
Oh my God, it's really doing it. Nobody's gonna believe this.
Its grey-brown body too long-limbed and too narrow to be any bear he'd encountered in 15 years on the job. It moved like something between an animal and a person. He watched it for nearly a full minute before it dropped down and ran into the forest. Later, when he informed wildlife experts, they identified it as a werewolf. Strange forest figure. A ranger conducting a routine sweep through Shawnee National Forest in Illinois spotted a figure standing motionless between the trees. He called out, assuming it was a lost hiker, but there was no answer. Then, without warning, the figure dropped onto all fours and started moving toward him fast and low to the ground, in a way no person naturally moves.
Just some cruisers, man.
He backed up and reached for his radio, but the figure kept coming. Later, it was captured and taken to a secret facility.
What's up, dude?
Forest cryptid. A ranger was doing a solo trail walk through Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia on the 4th of October, 2023, when something came charging through the trees ahead. His bodycam caught it clearly. Hairless, broad-shouldered, running on all fours, but built nothing like any animal he knew. What made its face even more disturbing were its sunken eyes and stretched jaw. He went missing from that day, and later, this footage was recovered from his bodycam, found on the same spot. Werewolf sighting. A ranger at Ouachita National Forest in Arkansas was following up on reports of mutilated deer carcasses found near the Eastern Trail when his bodycam caught movement in the brush ahead. A dark figure with pointy ears was moving upright behind the bushes. It had a long, narrow snout, dark, matted fur, and a body too large and too wrong to be any coyote he'd ever seen. He backed away slowly. 3 more deer were found that same week, and he was convinced that the creature he spotted in the woods resembled a werewolf and that it was responsible for deer carcasses. Dark, smoky figure. A ranger at Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado was doing a routine cabin check after a heavy snowfall when he spotted something dark walking on the road ahead. It had the proportions of a human. Then suddenly the figure began to chase him. Terrified, he turned and ran for his life without looking back. After running for a while, he looked back, but the figure vanished, as if it was not even there. He became convinced that it might be a ghost that had haunted the area for a long time. Alien sighting. A ranger at Joshua Tree National Park in California was completing a late-night round when his night vision caught a figure looking at the moon. It was hairless, olive-skinned, with pointed ears, a flat nose, and wearing a black gown. He watched it for nearly 2 minutes before it slowly turned and walked into the darkness. He believed it was an alien waiting for a UFO, but scientists who later reviewed the footage called it a hoax. Bizarre creature. A ranger at Redwood National Park in California was checking trail markers when he looked up and stopped breathing for a second. Something strange was standing 30 feet ahead, staring at him. 3 feet tall, covered in long dark hair, arms loose at its sides. He stared at it for a while, then they turned and walked into the redwoods. Out of curiosity, he shared the clip on YouTube, where one of the viewers claimed it might be a cannibal, but I would like to know your take on it. Forest anomalies. A ranger was checking an unmapped trail section in Congaree National Park in South Carolina when his bodycam captured two figures moving behind the tree trunks. One of them had its mouth wide open, while the other had long, pointed ears. Both moved with a strange, unnatural stride, as if they did not belong there and were trying to stay hidden. Before the ranger could radio for help, the two figures ran deeper into the forest and vanished, leaving him convinced that they were not from this world. Strange dark figure. A ranger was walking near Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky when something far ahead made him stop mid-step. Between two tree trunks stood a large, dark figure, completely still, not moving or shifting, just staring at him. It had a pale face, partly covered by black hair, and looked almost human. But the way it stood frozen in the middle of the forest felt so unnatural that the ranger turned around and left whatever it was behind. Frightening encounter. A ranger was doing his routine job in the outer grasslands of Ozark National Scenic Riverways in Missouri when his bodycam picked up a figure crouched low in the tall, dry grass ahead. It was small, dark, and with long hair covering its face. The moment he took a step toward it, the figure rose and came straight at him. His radio cut out. Mid-transmission. Search teams found the camera 3 days later in the same field, but they could not identify what the creature was. Rake sighting. A group of rangers was finishing a late patrol through Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio when their torch swept across something in the field beside the road. The driver slowed, and then a tall, pale figure was moving through the tall grass toward them. It was bald, thin, arms hanging wrong, moving with a jerky, unnatural stride that scared everyone in the van. The driver stepped on the accelerator and didn't stop until they hit the main road. On their way back, one of them suggested it might be a ranger because a local had once warned him not to travel through that area at night. Horned dragon. A ranger was inspecting a mossy rock formation along a creek bed in Olympic National Park in Washington when something hissed at him from a narrow crevice. He crouched down, and his bodycam captured it clearly. A small creature with green-scaled skin, multiple sharp horns, dark eyes, and a mouth wide open, showing rows of tiny teeth, pressing itself against the rocks and snapping at everything that came close. No reptile on any official park species list looked anything like it. Witnesses called it a dragon, but experts never came up with an explanation. Forest monster. Two junior rangers were conducting a wildlife survey deep inside Ocala National Forest in Florida when something made them run. A huge figure was moving toward them through the trees, upright, covered in dark black fur and breathing heavily. Terrified, they climbed the nearest tree and held on. The creature circled below for a while, then walked away without looking up. Back at the station, their supervisor watched the clip twice and identified it as an angry chimpanzee. Skinwalker encounter. Two rangers were running a night sweep through Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona on an off-road vehicle when their spotlight caught something standing at the edge of the tree line. They slowed down. The figure was bald, thin, and moving at an angle that looked unnatural. One ranger reached for his flashlight, and when the beam hit it directly, the figure retreated. Later, when they showed the clip to one of their seniors, he identified it as a mythical creature, a skinwalker. Red-eyed creature. A ranger, after finishing a night shift at Point Pleasant Historic District in West Virginia, was walking back to his vehicle when his bodycam caught something large sitting in the bare trees along the roadside. He raised his flashlight. It was enormous, dark, and winged, gripping the branches with what looked like clawed feet, its red eyes catching the light and holding it. He stood completely still for several seconds. Then it spread whatever it had instead of arms and lifted silently into the darkness without a sound. West Virginia locals have reported something matching that exact description since 1966. They call it the Mothman, and most rangers in that county don't laugh at the name anymore. Tree horror. A ranger at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore in Michigan heard something above him, as if something was moving the upper branches. He switched his Bodycam to night vision and pointed it upward. Wedged between the branches was a pale, bald shape with two faint points of light where eyes should be, completely motionless, watching him from above. He backed away slowly, leaving whatever it was, and never passed by this track again. Possessed fox. Recently, a ranger at Catoctin Mountain Park in Maryland noticed something standing at the entrance gate that left him shocked. A fox was standing on its hind legs, fully upright, front paws raised like hands. It looked as if something had taken control over it. It was standing and staring through the gate like it was expecting something. The ranger kept watching it until it dropped down and walked away calmly into the dark. Frightening figure. It was a normal Saturday night patrol through Daniel Boone National Forest in Kentucky when the ranger's flashlight caught two glowing white eyes staring back at him. The figure was broad, dark, and low to the ground, with swollen lips. He changed direction immediately and walked fast. Back at the station, he spent an hour searching online and became convinced that it might be a werewolf. But viewers argued that if it was a werewolf, how had he survived that night? Orang-Bunian. 3 rangers inspecting a remote area deep in Tongass National Forest in Alaska noticed something near the base of an old tree. One of them crouched down and looked curiously. Sitting among the roots was a tiny figure, no taller than a toddler, with white hair and a beard. Later, when they spoke to one of the nearby villagers, the villager claimed the creature might have been an Orang-Bunian, a mythical being said to be seen by people with pure souls. Spirit encounter. A neighbor in Knoxville, Tennessee, had been hearing banging from the empty house next door for 3 nights before she finally called security. 2 guards arrived, expecting nothing serious. The front door was swinging open and slamming shut on its own like something was standing behind it. They went inside and checked every room, but they could find no signs of anyone. As they turned to leave, the window beside them broke, and something flew past them. Both of them ran, fearing spirit might be following them to possess them.
Caralho, mano, que é isso, bicho?
Church spirit. A 911 call came in from a neighborhood in Galveston, Texas. At 2 in the morning, a resident had been hearing screaming from inside the old church down the street. The officer arrived alone and walked the center aisle with his torch, cutting through the dark. Wooden pews stretched out on both sides. He swung his light toward the right side and stopped. A dark figure was sitting quietly in one of the back rows. As he locked the light on it, it vanished as if it was not even there. The officer walked out thinking about what had been sitting in the church at this hour of the night. Locked witch. In Savannah, Georgia, a security guard was walking through a hallway in an abandoned building that had been locked up for years when his bodycam caught something that scared him. Crouched low near the far end of the corridor was a figure, pale white face, dark hollow eyes, and long black hair hanging loose. He steadied the camera and leaned in for a closer look, but before he could do so, it vanished. He searched the entire floor but could not spot it anywhere, as if it were a witch locked for years, and as he unlocked the floor, it got free. Stopped by a witch.
My mistakes, that's why.
On the 5th of May, 2017, at 9:30 at night, 2 guards were driving home after a long shift along a quiet road in San Antonio, Texas, when their headlights landed on something sitting in the middle of the road. It was crouched with its legs crossed, dark hair hanging down over its face, completely still. They reversed the car and took a different route home. On their way back home, they kept talking about La Llorona, the weeping witch said to haunt dark roads at night.
Okay, that's a bit scary.
Yeah,
That's a bit scary.
that is very scary.
Wendigo sighting. A security guard was doing his night rounds at a factory on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, when his torch caught something crouching between the plants behind the wall. It was tall and thin, covered in dark, matted hair, with a bony face and deep sunken eyes peering through the strands. For a brief second, it stayed motionless, as if caught off guard. Then it bolted into the darkness faster than anything he had ever seen move. When he described it to locals the next day, an older man nodded and said it sounded like a Wendigo. But I would like to know your take on it, so write it down in the comments section. Paranormal activity. A security guard was doing his late-night rounds inside a commercial building in Macon, Georgia, when the ceiling lights began flickering down the far end of the hallway. He had heard stories about this building from older staff, that paranormal things happened here at night. He switched on his camera and followed the sound. His feet barely moved as he approached the electrical room. The heavy metal door of the switch box was swinging open and slamming shut on its own. He stepped closer to inspect, but it stopped with no visible source of its movement. As he stepped back, it started again as if a ghost was doing it to scare him. After this experience, he became sure that the stories were true and he quit his night shift. Possessed mannequin. A security guard was doing a late-night inspection at a costume market in New Orleans, Louisiana, when he turned down one of the narrow aisles and came face to face with a clown mannequin dressed in black and white. He slowed down and moved closer to get a better look. Then it shifted, not falling, not tipping. It turned, like something inside it had adjusted its weight. The guard stumbled backward and didn't go back down that aisle because he believed that ghosts and spirits possessed the mannequins and dolls. Strange glowing figure. A sheriff was driving his usual late route through a town in Odessa, Texas, when something made him slow down. A house that had been abandoned for years had one of its lights on. Then he saw a white figure standing behind the glass door, glowing faintly and standing motionless. He sat there for a moment and kept recording. Then he drove off, thinking that it might be a phantom. But when he showed this footage to his superior, he argued that it might be a homeless man. Dark figure.
This place definitely gives out some creepy vibes.
On the 20th of April, 2018, a security guard was doing his night shift outside an office building in Shreveport, Louisiana, when he heard something coming from one of the locked rooms. He moved closer to check, and his bodycam caught something terrifying. A dark figure was standing pressed against the other side of the glass window. He knew for certain nobody had been inside that building since closing time. Then it got stranger. A strange sound started coming from around, with no one visible. He stood frozen and never went in. Management told him the next morning that the dark figure might be his shadow, and his mind was playing a trick on him. Smoky pump figure. A security guard working at a petrol station in Amarillo, Texas, was reviewing the overnight CCTV footage when something made him stop and rewind. Near one of the fuel pumps, a smoky figure appeared out of nowhere. It had no clear shape, just a drifting, hazy form that lingered for a moment and then vanished completely. The station had been empty at that hour. Nobody had pulled in, nobody had walked through. Curious about what he had seen, he posted the clip on Instagram. One commenter identified it immediately as a wandering spirit. Ghost car? Two highway patrol officers pulled over a speeding car on Interstate 40 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, late one night. The car had been moving fast and swerving slightly, so they hit their lights and followed it to the shoulder. The officers approached from either side. The driver's seat was empty, no one in the back either. The engine was still running, the seatbelt hanging loose. Nobody could explain how it had been moving at that speed with nobody inside. So one of their colleagues called it a ghost car. Gliding street figure. A security guard was guarding along a back road in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, when something moved across the path ahead of him. It was a pale white figure drifting from one side of the road to the other and disappearing into the dark without a sound. He stood still for a moment, not sure what he had just seen. He posted the clip on Instagram, claiming it was a ghost, said to haunt the people of the town for years, but viewers dismissed it as a hoax. Phantom tenant. A guard team in Toledo, Ohio, was reviewing security footage after a robbery was reported inside their building, expecting to spot a thief on camera. What they found instead was unsettling. A large white figure drifted out of one room and passed straight through the door of the next room without opening it. One of the guards had already been saying for weeks that something felt wrong in that building. After watching that footage, they all believed him that this place was haunted by an invisible force. Female spirit. A security guard was doing a walkthrough of an abandoned church in Savannah, Georgia, when his bodycam caught something near the stone wall. A pale female figure was peering around the corner, watching him. He moved toward it quickly, but when he stepped around to the other side, There was nothing there. No footsteps, no movement through the grass, just empty air. Locals had long talked about a woman who had jumped from that church years ago. Some believed her soul never really left. After that night, the guard was inclined to agree. Dark plane figure. A security guard was doing his shift at a regional airport in Tucson, Arizona, when he heard a sound coming from inside a grounded plane that had been sitting idle for 3 weeks. He climbed aboard with his torch and made his way down the dark aisle toward the front. Then his Bodycam caught it. A dark figure slowly peered out from behind the cockpit doorway and slid back into the darkness. He ran to get the other guards. By the time they boarded, the plane was empty. Nobody ever figured out what had been inside. Child's cry. A security guard was making his rounds through a closed market in Surabaya, Indonesia, late at night when he heard a child screaming and crying. He stopped and listened, then started checking every dark corner, but he could not find anything. The market had been locked since closing time, and he was the only one inside. He was scared because he had heard stories about a witch that haunted places like this at night, luring people deeper by mimicking the voices of children. Haunted building. On the 10th of March, 2021, it was past midnight at a government office building in Lansing, Michigan, when a security guard doing his routine floor check started hearing something he couldn't explain. He turned on his camera and walked toward it. Then one of the heavy wooden doors at the far end slowly pushed open on its own. He was scared because he was sure that he was alone on his shift. There was complete darkness behind the door, and no one came out despite his long wait. He filed a report the next morning, and on reviewing the clip, his supervisor suggested that it might be a ghost. Wandering soul.
What the?
It was 4 in the morning, and the mall in Aurora, Colorado was empty when the security guard on duty heard a scream tear through the silence. He grabbed his radio and followed the sound down the main corridor. Something moved at the far end of the hallway. He spotted it for a brief second, but his camera caught nothing. Then the scream came again. He walked straight to the exit and drove home. The next day, his colleague told him the mall had been built over an old graveyard, so he was sure that it might be a wandering soul. Swinging witch. A security guard was doing his late patrol through Riverside Park in Flint, Michigan, past midnight, when he noticed one of the playground swings moving, not swaying gently the way the wind might push it, moving back and forth in a full, steady rhythm, like something was sitting on it. He stood and watched it for almost a minute, camera running, waiting for it to slow down. It never did. The next morning, he showed this clip to one of his superiors, who claimed that it might be a witch that was said to haunt the people crossing the park late at night. Behind the corner. Back in 2023, a security guard was keeping watch over an empty student hostel in Columbus, Ohio, when he heard a creepy sound coming from the washroom. The building had been vacant for weeks. Curious, he walked in slowly, torch cutting through the dark, checking stalls. Then something peered around the far corner, a dark, small shape, just a face and a hand gripping the edge, visible for 1 second before pulling back. He checked behind that corner immediately, but found nothing. One of the older members later told him that washroom spirits are common in empty buildings after midnight. Terrified, he requested a transfer the very next day. Strange shadowy figure. One Sunday night, a security guard was on duty at a university in Bandung, Indonesia, when a banging sound from the parking lot made him quit his job. He headed downstairs and found the guardroom door slamming on its own. He stepped inside to check, but the room was empty. Then, before he could make sense of anything, a dark figure drifted past him, shapeless, like smoke, and vanished just as quickly as it appeared. He searched every corner, but found nothing. He walked out of that room convinced he had encountered a specter and quit his job on the spot. Zombie deer.
You probably didn't believe me.
Well, you said zombie, dude. I was like, well.
Yeah, you can.
A patrol team was driving along Highway 2 in Kalispell, Montana, when they spotted something standing completely still in the grass off the roadside. They pulled over to get a closer look. It was a deer, but not behaving like any deer they had seen before. It stood frozen, not flinching, not reacting, like something had switched it off. They watched it for a while, but it never moved. They filmed it and posted the clip on YouTube, where one commenter suggested deer sometimes lock up as a defense mechanism, but the guards were not convinced. Car mystery. Back in 2008, a police car was patrolling the M32 highway in Bristol when officers spotted a white car speeding and began to chase it. The car was swerving on the road at an incredible speed, as if it were being controlled not by a driver but by something else. After chasing it for half an hour, the car turned onto a narrow road surrounded by trees. Then something even more mysterious happened that left them scratching their heads. The car passed by a metal fence, and only its tail lights were seen going into the dark. The fence was not broken anywhere in a way that could explain how the car passed through. If you have any explanation, write it down in the comments section. Haunter wheelchair. A security guard was on his night shift at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, when he spotted a wheelchair outside the elevator. He stayed there and kept watching, hoping to catch it again on his body cam. At first, nothing strange happened. Then it rolled, heading straight toward him. He didn't wait to see where it stopped. He turned and walked off the floor and never returned to his job again. Haunted resort. After repeated reports of strange sightings around the property, a security guard at a resort in Aspen, Colorado, sat down one night to go through the CCTV footage himself. He didn't have to look long. On the 29th of January, the camera had picked up a tall, dark figure moving across the snow outside with glowing eyes. It wasn't walking like a person. It drifted, smoky and shapeless, leaving no footprints behind. Then it vanished in the dark. He watched it twice and was now sure that tourists were right about the ghost sightings. Abducted by rake. A security guard was sitting inside his cabin at a hill station resort in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Late one night when a chilling sound from outside pulled him to his feet, he stepped out into the dark to check. What came at him was fast, a bold, humanoid creature charging straight in his direction before his body cam could even focus. The footage cuts off abruptly. His camera was recovered from that exact spot the following morning. The guard was never found, and authorities identified the creature as a rake. Classroom specter. Two security guards were doing a night shift at an elementary school in San Bernardino, California, when a sound came from down the hall. They grabbed their flashlights and went to check room by room. Everything looked normal until they reached one of the classrooms at the far end of the hall. The room was empty, desks lined up, chairs tucked in. Then one of the chairs scraped across the floor on its own. They walked straight downstairs, convinced that there was a ghost, as classrooms are said to be haunted by ghosts at night. Tunnel crawler. A transit guard was doing a routine sweep through an old rail tunnel in Scranton, Pennsylvania, when his body cam picked up something that left him shocked. He had walked through that tunnel dozens of times before, but this night felt different. About halfway through, his light caught a pale figure lying flat across the tracks ahead, face down. He slowed his pace and kept moving closer. Suddenly, the figure moved as if it were trying to stand up. Out of fear, the officer ran back and never passed by this tunnel again. Vanishing woman.
I'm so sorry. I literally didn't even see it.
No
This is
worries.
my first time being pulled over.
Alright, can I see your driver's license registration, please?
Yeah.
A policewoman stopped a speeding car in Dahlonega, Georgia, USA, on the 17th of July, 2024. The officer reached the driver's window, where a young woman was sitting, who apologized for speeding. When the officer asked for the registration and ID, the woman handed them over to her. She said she was heading to a friend's house for a birthday party and that the car belonged to her mother. But then something happened that left the officer shocked. The woman vanished as if she had never been there. The officer called her name, Sarah, but she could not find her anywhere. Out of curiosity, she showed the video to her senior officer, who claimed that Sarah might have been an alien disguised as a woman on a secret mission. And when she was about to be caught, she vanished.
Alright. Sit tight, Sarah. I'll be right back. Your registration is this. What the?
Sarah?
What the? Sarah?
Open discussion. A security guard was making his rounds through the hallways of St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston, Texas, at 3 in the morning when his body cam caught something he completely missed in the moment. At the far end of the corridor, a dark figure stood half inside a doorway, upright and still, peering out into the hall. No patients were on that wing. No staff either. He saw it later when he reviewed the footage at home and became convinced that it might be a grim reaper waiting to escort newly deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife. Giant forest being. On the 11th of March, 2025, a ranger at Cumberland Gap National Historical Park in Kentucky responded to a noise complaint from campers, reporting loud wood cracking sounds deep in the tree line. When he reached the source, his body cam caught it clearly. A tall figure standing upright, covered in long, matted hair, and built like nothing he had ever encountered. The moment his flashlight swept across it, the figure turned and ran into the deep forest. Search teams swept the area that night, but nothing was found except broken branches. Bigfoot sighting. A ranger patrolling the perimeter of the trail at Olympic National Park in Washington was responding to reports of campers hearing heavy footsteps near their site. Around 3 in the afternoon, his body cam caught something crouched between the trees. It was massive and dark. It wasn't a bear. The shape was too upright, too wide across the shoulders. He radioed it in, but by the time backup arrived, whatever it was had vanished, leaving only snapped branches. Later, when the authorities watched this footage, they were convinced that it was a Bigfoot. Bizarre crouching figures. A ranger at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia was investigating reports of strange lights near the old-growth tree line when his body cam picked up a pale, round face peering from behind a trunk completely still, just watching him. He called for backup immediately. When 2 more rangers arrived, 3 more figures emerged from the darkness, crouching low, eyes glowing, ears pointed sharply upward.
भाई जान पीछे जानवर इतने खतरनाक है कि आपको बता नहीं सकता मैं और पता नहीं क्या समझ नहीं आ रहा इनकी आंखें.
The rangers moved to intercept them, but the figures scattered and disappeared into the deep forest within seconds, leaving nothing behind except claw marks pressed into the dirt. Tall forest figure. A ranger at Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona had just finished documenting illegal campfire damage along the south rim when his body cam caught something moving through the pines below the ridge. He stopped walking and began focusing on whatever was moving among the trees. Whatever was standing between those trees was upright, broad-shouldered, and covered in thick reddish-brown fur. Far too tall to be a hiker, far too still to be a bear. It turned its head slowly, locked eyes with the camera, then walked away as if giving him a warning to leave this place. Midnight crossing. Ranger Davies was doing a late-night road patrol through Tongass National Forest in Alaska when his headlights caught something crossing the road ahead. He hit the brakes. The figure was enormous, walking upright on 2 legs, covered in dark, matted fur, taking slow and heavy strides as if it belonged there. He sat there with the engine running, not daring to step out. The figure crossed without even glancing at him and disappeared into the tree line. On his way back, he could not shake the feeling that it was Bigfoot. Forest dwarf. Hope you've enjoyed it so far, but it's about to get more insane after this. Trust me. Quickly like this video and subscribe, so you can watch the next part just as quickly. A ranger at Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee was tracking a reported injured deer off the main trail when his body cam picked up movement between the trees. He stopped. Something small was moving, no taller than a child, pale-skinned, with a large rounded head and thin, bony limbs. It crouched, straightened, then crouched again, moving slowly like it was searching the ground for something. He had been working in this forest for 10 years, but had never encountered anything like this before. Later, he showed this footage to his senior, who claimed it might be a dwarf. Sasquatch sighting. The Hargrove family was spending an afternoon at Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota when their youngest pointed at something moving through the dry grass. The father grabbed his phone and hit record. A dark figure was walking upright through the field, unhurried, broad through the shoulders, moving the way no known animal walks.
There goes Kid. He's sneaky, dude.
What on earth?
That's not a deer.
Yes.
A passing ranger stopped when he saw them filming and watched the clip on the spot. He radioed it in, but when they searched the area, they found nothing. Creature backed away. A ranger doing a solo trail inspection in Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia heard something heavy moving through the trees ahead and slowed his pace. Through the branches, he spotted it, a large, dark figure covered in matted fur, standing there between the trees. The moment it noticed him approaching, it turned and started moving backward. Curious, he shared the clip on Instagram, where one of the commenters suggested it was a Sasquatch. Strange hitchhiker. On the 14th of March, a ranger was driving back alone through Zion National Park in Utah after a long night shift when his headlights caught a figure standing perfectly still beside the road. He slowed down instinctively, assuming it was a stranded hiker. Then the figure stepped toward his car and reached for the door handle. He floored the accelerator without thinking and didn't look in the mirror for a full mile. Being alone, stepping out was never an option. On the drive back to the station, he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was standing there wasn't really a person at all. Terrifying figure. It was a quiet Sunday when a ranger at Glacier National Park in Montana sat down to review the week's Bodycam recordings. Most of it was routine, then one clip stopped him cold. His camera had caught a massive figure standing between the trees, with black hair covering its entire body, and a pale, almost white face staring straight ahead. After watching this clip, he was sure that it was a witch he once heard about in stories, said to haunt people in the forests at night. Peculiar figure. A ranger was doing a routine foot patrol along the outer trail at Ozark National Forest in Arkansas when he noticed something strange that made him stop walking. A dark figure was standing in the bushes, upright, completely motionless.
What is this?
Curious, he took a few steps closer and the figure vanished as if it were not even there. He looked around but could not spot it anywhere and became convinced it might be a ghost, as forests are said to be haunted by spirits. Forest anomaly. A ranger at Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in Washington uploaded a clip to Instagram on the 18th of March, 2021, and left viewers stunned. The footage showed something enormous standing between the pines, dark, upright, wide across the chest, staring strangely. Wildlife experts who reviewed the clip refused to confirm it as a Bigfoot. If you have any explanation for it, then write it down in the comments section. Bizarre road figure. A ranger was driving a supply run through a back road in Apalachicola National Forest in Florida when he saw something sitting in the middle of the dirt track ahead. It was pale, thin, with its knees pulled up, sitting motionless in the road like it had been waiting there. Terrified by the creature, he reversed the vehicle without shifting his eyes away from it and radioed in what he saw. Later, he shared the clip online, but nobody could explain what that was doing out there. Forest horror. A ranger was doing a mounted patrol through Ocala National Forest in Florida when his horse refused to move another step. He'd ridden that trail dozens of times and never seen the animal react like that. Then he saw a pale, bald figure peering at him from behind a tree trunk, with bulging black eyes, no expression. The moment their eyes met, it pulled back behind the tree and was gone. Terrified, he changed his direction, and when he returned with more rangers to investigate what was lurking in the woods, he couldn't find a single trace. Haunted tree. A ranger was clearing a fallen branch off the trail at New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia when a sound from above stopped him cold. He looked up, and his body cam caught a dark figure climbing along the top branches, looking straight down at him. Terrified, he suddenly ran from this sight because his fellow ranger warned him that this tree was haunted by a ghost. Bone-chilling forest creature. A ranger was escorting a group of hikers along a rocky ridge in North Cascades National Park in Washington when one of them spotted something dark moving across the slope below. The ranger quickly turned his body cam toward it. What came into view was a massive creature with dark fur and hunched shoulders, moving on all fours at a speed that seemed impossible for its size. Suddenly, it charged straight toward them. The hikers scattered in panic, and the footage ended abruptly, leaving everyone wondering what happened next. Forest crawler. A ranger at Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina was responding to reports of something raiding a campsite when his flashlight swept across the ground ahead and he froze. Something pale was moving through the leaf litter on all fours, low and fast, pressing itself close to the ground as if trying not to be seen from above. He kept filming as the strange figure crawled between the roots and disappeared into the darkness. After reviewing the footage, authorities reportedly closed the campsite to tourists, fearing that whatever was lurking there could put visitors' lives at risk. Bluish figure. Nobody at White Sands National Park in New Mexico had ever filed a report like this one. A ranger's bodycam captured something unsettling while crossing this park. It was a small, distinctly blue head sitting on the ground, motionless. Before he could process it, something even more strange emerged from the darkness behind it. Taller, glowing faintly, shaped like a person. Terrified by the sight, he quickly ran to his campsite. Later, he shared the clip on TikTok, claiming it was aliens, but viewers dismissed it as a hoax. Camper went missing. This camera was found inside Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona with no sign of its owner. The footage shows a woman camping alone late at night when she suddenly stood up, sensing something moving in the dark around her. She sweeps her flashlight across the trees but finds nothing. What she never saw was right behind her, a pale figure crouched low, watching her every move. Park rangers who reviewed the footage identified it as a skinwalker that had reportedly been seen in the region. The woman has never been found. Terrifying road encounter. A ranger was driving home after a double shift through Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming when something crossing the road forced him to slam on the brakes. It was enormous, reddish-brown, heavily muscled, and moving on all fours. Its neck was unusually thick, its shoulders were too broad, and its snout was pulled back, exposing its teeth even as it walked. Terrified, the ranger froze in his seat, unable to move an inch. He kept the vehicle still and waited for the creature to cross the road. But as he continued his drive back, a creepy thought crept into his mind. What if the creature had suddenly charged at him? Mysterious dog. Just a month ago, rangers were called to Taman Negara National Park in Pahang, Malaysia, at 3 a.m. after a group of friends camping there claimed they had seen a strange creature. According to the campers, the creature suddenly appeared in front of them and stood upright. Its body was covered in black hair, and its head resembled that of a dog, but it had long, pointy ears and glowing eyes. What made it unsettling was the way it stood. At first, it was upright on two legs, but when it noticed the flashlight beams and sensed that it was surrounded by people, it dropped down on all fours like a dog and suddenly ran back into the woods. The rangers searched the forest for the rest of the night, but they could not find any trace of it. Open discussion. Now it's time for today's most unsettling clip. This one genuinely freaked me out, so watch closely. On June 25, 2011, a ranger went deep into Denali National Park in Alaska while searching for his missing fellow ranger. But during the search, he encountered something terrifying. The creature had long fangs, pointed ears, and a wide-open mouth. Its entire body was covered in thick black fur. What made it even more disturbing was the way it moved. It charged toward him while walking on its hind legs, unlike any normal animal. For just a moment, the creature was captured on his bodycam before the footage suddenly cut off. The ranger also disappeared that night. The next morning, search teams found his bodycam lying in the same area, but there was no sign of him. When authorities reviewed the footage, they were convinced the creature looked like a werewolf and may have been responsible for the disappearances. The park was immediately closed to visitors while teams searched the area. But despite their efforts, they never found any animal that matched the creature's description.
Feeding the alien.
This whole thing.
This footage came out of what looked like a dark jungle location, and the man in it appeared to be military or government. He held out a large, raw piece of meat toward a gray alien standing right in front of him, and the alien took it with both hands and began eating. The being was pale, green-gray, large-eyed, frail, bodied, but clearly present and interactive. The casual nature of the exchange was what made this so unsettling. Alien escorted. Out in an open desert landscape, fully armed military personnel were photographed escorting something that was clearly not one of their own. Walking between the soldiers was a tall, silver, gray alien, smooth-skinned, large, dark eyes, long-limbed and slender, walking upright without any restraints visible. The soldiers around it were in full combat gear, but their body language suggested this was a transfer operation rather than a capture. The being was enormous compared to the men flanking it. The photo was linked to a transfer toward Area 51 facilities, which, if true, would mean whatever agreements exist between governments and extraterrestrials go a lot deeper than anyone has officially admitted. Military escort leaked.
Is that thing?
Night vision footage leaked from inside what appeared to be an active military base showed 4 uniformed soldiers walking in formation through a facility corridor lined with equipment. In the middle of the group, flanked on all sides, was a figure that was noticeably different, shorter than the soldiers, pale, and moving with a stiff, fragile gait that looked nothing like a human walking under their own confidence. It was being escorted somewhere, either coming from an interrogation or heading toward one. The soldiers moved with discipline and purpose, keeping tight around it. Whoever leaked this footage did so quietly. Now it's time for today's open discussion. In the summer of 1947, outside Roswell, New Mexico, something came down in the desert, and the military was on the scene before almost anyone else knew it happened. Footage from the crash site showed armed soldiers standing guard around a tilted disc-shaped craft that had clearly come down hard. On the ground nearby, a long, pale figure was stretched out flat in the dirt, while other soldiers crouched over it, wearing gloves, examining it up close. The body was thin, gray-green, with elongated limbs and a large head. Armed guards kept a wide perimeter around the whole scene. The military called it a weather balloon. But you don't send armed soldiers with rifles to recover a weather balloon, and you certainly don't classify the files for decades after.
¿Es real?
Fort George is an active military installation, which makes this footage all the more extraordinary. A camera picked up what appeared to be a tall, thin, gray figure walking casually alongside a U.S. Army soldier on the base grounds, completely unbothered and moving like it belonged there. The soldier next to it didn't react, didn't flinch, and kept walking like this was completely routine. That detail alone was what got people talking the most. Either nobody on that base found this unusual, or they had been told not to react. What was walking alongside that soldier at Fort George was not human.
No puede ser.
Chase or escort? Two American fighter jets were filmed in close pursuit of a dark disc-shaped craft that was moving through the sky with complete indifference to the aircraft on its tail. The UFO was solid, round, and showed no exhaust, no wings, and no visible propulsion, as the jets banked hard trying to keep up with it. Bob Lazar spent decades telling anyone who would listen that he reverse-engineered exactly this kind of craft inside Area 51, and lost everything professionally for saying so publicly. A man doesn't sacrifice his career and reputation for something that isn't true. Area 51 interrogation. Back in 1996, a man who only identified himself as Victor leaked footage he claimed to have pulled directly out of Area 51. The clip showed what appeared to be a live gray alien being interrogated inside a facility, small, framed with a large rounded head, enormous dark eyes, and a tiny mouth. According to Victor, this being had survived after its craft was shot down in 1989. Rocket Pictures released it through a documentary in May 1997. Researcher Michael Heisman backed the timeline up, linking it to a South African Air Force report about a downed craft in the Kalahari Desert that same year, with one survivor allegedly transferred to Area 51. Captured alien. A TikTok account called Adel Ulfer, whose bio listed him as working in aerospace and defense, posted 2 clips in the summer of 2022 that people are still talking about. The first was dated June 23rd, and the second 1st July. Both showed someone interacting with a metallic container fitted with a small viewing window, appearing to pass something through it like a feeding routine. For just a split second in the footage, a face appeared behind the glass. Large, dark eyes, pale skin, a rounded head, and a humanoid shape that matched every description ever given of a gray alien. The account gave no explanation and no follow-up. Close alien encounter.
Empezamos a escuchar ruidos.
In Tamaulipas, Mexico, a local man named Juanito Juan decided to enter an abandoned location after the paranormal investigator who had gone in before him simply vanished without a trace. Inside, he found a bright light source with no obvious origin and no one visibly holding it. He called out, but got nothing back. As he pushed further in and got closer to the light, a figure emerged from the darkness behind it. Large rounded head, dark sunken eyes, slight frame, it looked exactly like the gray alien descriptions that have been coming out of Mexico for decades. He got it on camera before getting out of there. Rendlesham Forest. October 4th, 2003. Someone was out in Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England, when their camera captured something sitting in a clearing between the trees. A classic disc-shaped craft was resting on the ground, and standing on either side of it were two tall, gray figures. The timestamp was burned right into the footage, the kind that was fixed to the camera hardware and couldn't be edited or faked after the fact. Rendlesham Forest already had one of the most documented UFO incidents in British history back in 1980. Captured in India. Somewhere in rural India, late at night, a group of people gathered around something lying in the dry grass and straw that nobody could explain. The footage showed a small, pale, frail creature flat on the ground, completely still, with a large round head and wide dark eyes that caught every light pointed at it. Its body was almost skeletal, in a way that matched no animal found in that region. The people standing around it looked genuinely unsettled, phones out, nobody moving too close. The video spread worldwide fast, and the comment section filled up with people who had no explanation either. Some things are hard to dismiss. Alien trap. Somewhere in the American Southwest, a person filming between a gap in some large rocks caught something that made them step back fast. Pressed into the dark space between the stones was a small, dark figure, with one enormous black eye visible and a pale, elongated hand reaching out through the gap, fingers stretched forward. It was impossible to tell from the footage whether it was stuck and trying to get out, or whether it was reaching toward whoever was holding the camera. That uncertainty was the most unsettling part. Nobody stuck around long enough to find out which one it was, and honestly, given what that hand looked like, that was probably the right call. Project Blue Book.
How about we concentrate on your time?
On June 9th, 1964, a classified session under Project Blue Book was allegedly filmed, and that footage has now surfaced uncut. The black and white clip showed a gray alien seated at a table in what looked like an interrogation room, its large domed skull, hollow eyes, and frail frame clearly visible as it sat hunched forward. Personnel were present across from it, speaking to it and observing closely. Someone off camera could be heard saying, "Tell us the truth."
Tell us the truth.
This footage predates AI-generated video by decades, which makes dismissing it a lot harder than people would like. Hangar footage. Leaked KGB footage from an unknown military base showed something that dwarfed everything around it, inside a large industrial hangar. A massive dark disc-shaped craft sat at the center of the space, its curved hull almost touching the ceiling above it. Personnel in white suits worked around its base, while suited figures in darker clothing observed from a distance. The scale of the craft, relative to the people standing next to it, was staggering. This was old footage, grainy, and clearly not staged for public consumption, which is exactly what made it so compelling. Two grays walking. In this old footage, two figures moved slowly through what appeared to be a dimly lit corridor or open space, and neither of them was human. Both had the same distinct profile: large, rounded heads sitting on slender necks, narrow, sloping shoulders, and slight frames that moved with a slow, deliberate pace. They walked side by side without any urgency, almost like they were completely comfortable wherever they were. The caption in the footage referenced someone named Tatalian, suggesting this may have been part of a documented encounter or internal record of some kind. Stalking alien. A home security camera in Roswell, New Mexico picked up something outside a ground floor window late at night that the homeowner wasn't expecting to find on their footage the next morning. A pale, rounded face pressed close to the glass, staring directly into the house. The eyes were oversized and dark, the head noticeably too large for the narrow neck beneath it, and the facial features were flat and minimal in a way that didn't match any human face. It just stood there at the window, completely still, looking in. Forest alien encounter. While checking an abandoned area, military officers spotted a strange figure with dark, almond-shaped eyes and a gray body nearby there. When their flashlight landed on it, the alien quickly lifted its odd arms to cover its face, which made people think it already understood exactly what a camera was and what it meant to be watched. And if that's true, it had learned that somewhere. Alien in Brazil. The Varginha incident is one of the most documented alien cases in South American history, and this declassified footage brings it back into focus. In 1996, in the city of Varginha, Brazil, the Brazilian army allegedly captured a living extraterrestrial being after multiple civilian witnesses reported seeing a strange creature in the streets. The footage showed a dark figure in a wooded area, illuminated briefly by light, with a body shape that matched exactly what the original witnesses described: large head, reddish eyes, and a slightly oily-looking frame. The military denied everything officially, but this footage suggests there was a lot more to cover up than they admitted. Whistleblower.
Now notice also, this is the body of an alien, and where we have 6 ribs that are connected together, they have 3.
A person wearing a disguise to protect their identity went live and claimed they had worked inside Area 50 on. Then, this person held up photographs that were taken from within the base. The first image showed what appeared to be a small, pale body lying on a surface, legs and feet visible, clearly not human in proportion. The second photo was the one that stopped people cold. A face stared back at the camera, large, elongated skull, deep-set dark eyes with a skeletal quality to the facial structure that no human being carries. This person risked everything going public.
And they still look like this.
Alien Mona Lisa. The Apollo 20 mission was never supposed to exist publicly. According to those who came forward, it was a classified joint American and Soviet recovery operation with one goal: retrieve alien technology from the moon. What they found inside a massive, crashed alien spacecraft was not just technology. Lying inside the wreckage was a female humanoid figure they named Mona Lisa. The footage showed her face up close, dark hair, human-like features, but with subtle differences around the brow and skin texture that set her apart. This mission was buried immediately and denied ever happening. Kitchen visitor.
Oh my god. What the is that?
On March 5th, 2005 and 3:10 in the morning, a camera captured something moving inside the kitchen. Entry number 69 in what appeared to be an ongoing videotape to capture an alien after being woken up by bright flashes of light inside the kitchen as an alien. The close-up frame showed a dark, rounded face peering from behind a door inside the wall, large, dark eyes, no visible nose, and a wide, flat head. Whatever visited that house that night, it left Grandpa on the floor.
Oh my god, what's it doing?
Blue Book interview.
You say you're from the future and an evolutionary descendant of humans. You also say you're a different species. So, which one is it? Are you a descendant of humans or not?
This was the second part of the June 9th, 1964, classified interview conducted at Dulce Base, the underground facility in New Mexico that has been at the center of alien collaboration theories for decades. The footage showed the gray being, its large domed skull catching the light as it sat upright with both arms resting outward. A subtitle appeared on screen translating its response as, "For a short while, sir," which meant communication was happening in both directions. The fact that this interview had a part 2 suggested this was not a one-time encounter, but an ongoing, documented exchange between humans and aliens.
How do you speak English?
Tall, pale alien. Filmed near the perimeter of Area 51 in the Nevada desert, this clip showed a thin, gray figure sprinting across open ground at a speed that looked completely unnatural for something that size. The body was slight and elongated, moving low and fast across the desert floor with an odd gait that didn't match any animal native to that region. The surrounding landscape was flat and exposed, which made the figure easy to track across the frame before it disappeared. Whether this was an escapee, a test subject, or something that simply wandered too close to the fence line, the Nevada desert has been hiding things for a very long time.
Before you go, drop in the comments, which one got you the most? Your picks help us find the next video. Like, subscribe, and let's keep building the weird side of the world together. Thank you so much for watching.